All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to unpack a really powerful idea, how an ancient story, of all things, about turning total scarcity into just unbelievable abundance, gives us this perfect blueprint for what we now call a growth mindset. So the story, which comes from the Book of 2 Kings, it kicks off in a place of just absolute desperation. I mean, picture this. A widow is so deep in debt that creditors are literally at her door, about to take her 2 sons and sell them into slavery to pay it off. It's a situation that feels completely and utterly hopeless.
And this is where it gets so interesting, right? This crisis, this rock bottom moment, becomes the setting for a masterclass in what we call a growth mindset. It's this core belief that where you start isn't where you have to finish. That you, me, all of us, we have the capacity to grow, to stretch, to learn, and to see real, tangible increase in our lives.
Yeah, this ancient story is like a perfect roadmap for this very modern concept, and it all begins with a fundamental choice, a shift in how you see things.
This contrast right here is everything. A fixed mindset, which, let's be honest, is where the widow started, it just says, I'm stuck, this is it, game over. It's a perspective that's completely locked on the debt, the lack, the scarcity. But a growth mindset? It totally flips the script. It asks a completely different question. Okay, what do I have? What's the one seed I can start with?
And that question leads us straight to the very first step in this whole process. See, a growth mindset doesn't start with denial. It starts with honest awareness. It starts by taking a real look at what you actually have.
This moment is so critical. The prophet Elisha, he doesn't just show up with a magic wand. He asks a question. And her answer, it's just so human, isn't it? Nothing. You can just feel the despair in that word. But then she remembers, except a small jar of oil. She doesn't ignore her limitations, but she also acknowledges the one tiny thing she does have.
And that's the whole point, really. A growth mindset refuses to let the struggle be the end of the story. It starts looking for the potential hidden inside the not enough. That tiny jar of oil, the thing she almost didn't even mention, that's exactly where the miracle is about to begin. But here's the thing, just thinking the right way isn't enough, is it? It has to be paired with action. It means you have to move from just hoping for a miracle to actively, physically preparing for one.
Elisha's instructions are super specific, and they require work. Go borrow vessels. He's telling her to get containers, but notice the scale he pushes her toward. Don't just get a few. He's challenging her to think way bigger. This wasn't some passive little exercise. She had to go knock on doors, probably face some embarrassment, and put in real physical effort.
And this just brilliantly illustrates a core principle of growth. The size of her miracle was going to be directly tied to the size of her preparation. I mean, think about it. If she'd only collected a handful of jars, she would have only gotten a little bit of oil. By going out and gathering as many as she could, she was preparing for an overflow.
Okay, so she's done the prep work. She has her capacity ready. Now comes the part that requires faith and consistency, the actual work of pouring. This is where that internal belief has to turn into external action. You know, this little detail to shut the door is so fascinating. It tells us that some of the most important work we do, the work of real growth, isn't for an audience. It's about what you do when nobody's watching. She didn't need applause. She just needed to do the work. It's such a great reminder that the internal transformation always has to happen before you see the external results.
3 simple words, but they contain the entire engine of this miracle. The oil didn't just multiply while it was sitting on the shelf. No, it multiplied as she was pouring it. The action itself was the trigger. She had to keep going, one jar after another.
And this is the central dynamic, this beautiful partnership. Her action and the provision were directly linked. As long as she was doing her part, pouring, the miraculous supply kept flowing. The second she stopped pouring, the oil would have stopped. It's that consistent, faithful action that fuels the growth.
So what does pouring look like for you and me? It's not about literal oil, of course. It's about pouring our time into learning a new skill, pouring our unique gifts and talents into a project, pouring consistent effort into our work, our relationships, our health. It's pouring our creativity into solving that tough problem. It's all about that consistent, faithful action. Now, every story has its climax, right? The oil is flowing, the jars are filling up, it feels like it could go on forever. But eventually it comes to an end. And the reason why it ends is maybe the single most important lesson in this whole story. The story couldn't be more clear about this. The miracle didn't stop because the supply of oil ran out, it stopped because her capacity ran out. There was simply no more empty jars left to fill. And this is the kicker. The only limit placed on this miracle was the one she had set herself by the number of jars she collected. The source of the oil was apparently limitless, but the container for it wasn't. She, through her preparation, determined the boundary of her own blessing. This just perfectly sums up the difference between simply wanting something and truly expecting it. See, prayer is when you ask for a blessing, but preparation, the hard work of going out and gathering all those empty jars, that shows you're actually making room for it, that you truly expect that blessing to arrive.
So all the jars are full, the miracle has happened, what's next? Well, this was never just about getting out of a tight spot. The outcome of all this growth was about establishing a brand new future.
I just love these final instructions. First, solve the immediate crisis. Pay your debts. Get that burden off your back. But it doesn't stop there. The miracle provided more than enough, and live on the rest. This wasn't a temporary band-aid. This was a sustainable solution that created a future for her and her sons.
And at the end of the day, that's the real goal of a growth mindset. It's not just about some abstract personal success. It's about purpose. It leads to freedom from the things that held you back. It creates stability. It empowers you to break negative cycles in your family or your community. And ultimately, it equips you to step into and fulfill your unique calling.
So this is where this incredible ancient story lands right here for us today. Your jar might look really small, your resources might feel totally limited, and your past might be painful. But the lesson is so clear. Focus on what you have, prepare for more than you think you need, and no matter what, just keep pouring.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. What's the gift, the resource, the small opportunity that's already in your hands, but that maybe you've dismissed as not enough? Because, as this story shows us, that little thing might be the very place your greatest growth is just waiting to begin.